internet users become more savvy, so too are the real estate sites you'll find on the web. Jordan Behan shows you how to use the net to your advantage. Of course, the real estate market has used technology more and more as the years have gone on.
And it's evolving like crazy these days too. There's a number of different examples of sites in the States where there's buyers and sellers and realty professionals connecting online, sharing information, which means more informed buyers and sellers and more informed realtors as well. They get a better understanding of what people are looking for.
How are consumers using the net? Outside of typing, MLS.ca, which is only one of many sites.
Obviously, there's a number of different resources that you can go to learn about anything on the net these days, but specifically I think that some of the social media sites that are popping up these days, especially in the United States, but recently in Canada, there's one, myrealplace.com. You have an opportunity to ask questions of a realtor in a space where you don't necessarily have to get to the level of where you're comfortable enough to speak face-to-face. Maybe you feel somebody out, ask a question that you need answered, and decide whether you're comfortable with dealing with that person before you can proceed. And literally, there's everything that you want to know about the real estate industry in any neighborhood. You can learn it on the web.
Is this one of the first sites that have been created?
myrealplace.com is the first example in Canada of a social media site dedicated to the real estate industry.
How are realtors embracing technology as far as being able to sell property?
Well, realtors are a perfect example of the kind of profession where their business is dependent upon them and their personality and their ability to deal with people. And so they're among the first to really put a lot of focus on websites that are incredibly informative to their visitors. And now you see them getting out into the social media sites like Facebook and things like that, where they can really connect with people and share who they are with more people than they can just in their daily interactions with the old traditional handshake.
Is that a good thing? This is
I think it's a terrific
me.
thing.
It gets pretty personal. Is it taking too much personal or adding too much personal into business?
I don't think so at all. I think it's exactly the opposite. I think that that's what business should be all about. You should be able to establish some level of rapport and trust with a person before you can make, something like buying or selling a home is a critical decision in most people's lives. One of the biggest decisions that they make is certainly as far as a consumer is concerned. And so armed with more information and knowing, confidently in your mind that you've chosen the right person to help you out with that, I think that it can only be a good thing.
Blogs? Seems really informal. Can you trust them? You see, it's a growing trend, right?
It is, and I think that the level that you can trust a blog is directly relative to the level that you can trust the person that's publishing that information. As I said before, it's really just relationship building with content on the web. And so if you suspect that somebody can't be trusted, then you kind of have to follow your gut feeling on that. And but there's certainly a ton of responsible realtors and professionals out there that are sharing information that's of incredible value to people and informing them about how to make good buying and selling decisions on the web. And it's better for the industry. It's better for them, definitely.
What about reviews? Are we seeing any kind of reviews or recommendations, or maybe on the negative side, will those kind of things be posted on some of these sites?
Absolutely, and it's already happening in a big way, and I think that's terrific as well, because you're essentially accountable to the way that you do business. If you're not being completely honest with people, if you're misrepresenting yourself in any way, then you'll be called on that. And
that brings up a good point then. Is there a potential liability issue if there's something that is not true, that's presented inaccurately, or there's exaggeration?
Definitely,
or whatever?
and on a lot of these sites too, you see a bit of community policing. If for instance, a realtor received a bad review and the community felt that was unfair, or perhaps 10 other members disagreed with them,
right, then
essentially the problem takes care of itself.
Okay.
Whereas if you start to see a trend in poor reviews, you make your judgments based on that.
Absolutely. Okay, so we already know technology is definitely becoming a big part of the real estate market. It already is. In just a few moments, we'll ask you what you think is going to happen in the future.
You bet.
All right.
After the break, Jordan shares more great real estate sites, why Vancouver's such a livable city, and in a few minutes, how to improve your painting technique.
Realty Television is brought to you by RE/MAX. Outstanding agents, outstanding results.
Give us What's your crystal ball prediction? What do you think is going to happen in the next 2, 3, 10, 20 years as far as marketing this way?
I think we're going to see a lot, a lot more of the same. People connecting in the web space with information, sharing information back and forth. Buyers and sellers get smarter and smarter every single day, and that is going to shape the way real estate professionals adjust their marketing portfolios and the way that they connect with people.
So if you could project what's going to happen in the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, whatever, what do you see happening?
I think that social networking sites are going to really start to dominate the space on the web. The real estate companies themselves starting to put the tools in their realtors' hands to allow that to happen.
Do you think there's a risk of people relying too much on the internet, though? We talked a little bit earlier about blogs. If you only base your information on what you're seeing on some of these sites, could there be a downside, a risk of that?
I don't think so. I think that there's obviously tons of ways that you can learn this information from millions of different sources, and you have to boil it down to the stuff that's really important to you. And the same goes with realtors. There's an infinite amount of things that they can share with their audience or with their customers and clients, and you have to decide what's actually of value.
If I was a realtor, I might be a little bit concerned because people can now list their places on the internet, they can deal with financing, they can do almost everything on their own. Do you think that there's a potential that, however long from now, that realtors, the profession could be at risk?
I certainly wouldn't rule that out. There is a possibility. I just don't think it's going to necessarily be in the near future. It's still a profession. There's still a ton of information and knowledge that realtors possess when it comes to those kinds of transactions that a person like myself doesn't understand, and I would need that helping hand. As a buyer and seller, what we have now, at least, is access to everything that we need to know to be able to make the decision as to whether or not we can handle a transaction like that on our own. Sure, the tools are there. Is it a good idea? That's really up to the end user themselves. I think that at this point, using the amount of information that's available to help choose the exact professional that will help you achieve the goals that you want is probably a better tact at this point.
And yet, if I chose not to use a professional for whatever reason, or I'm not quite ready for that step, it seems to me as a consumer, this is a good place to start.
Absolutely. You can certainly inform yourself to the point where you'd start to feel like you didn't need the help. And just when it comes down to it and you're in that the negotiation stage and things like that, I think there's still value in having a professional to help you out.
At some point, there still has to be face-to-face and not face-to-monitor,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah, and you can get to know that person before you have to take that step, and you know that you like them when you actually meet them face-to-face.
Can users at all, and by users I mean consumers, is there a way for them to communicate with each other? It's not always based on what the realtor has to say?
Well, they can do the same within
right.
the social networking sites like myrealplace.com, and as we said, there's tons of examples in the States, and really on Facebook, anywhere that you can share information back and forth, from backroom gossip to right up there on the front page of your blog.
Grain of salt, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. You trust who you trust,
okay.
and you just make informed decisions based on what you learn.
Great, thanks a lot.
Hey, no problem.